Hey everyone, it's Jason. Welcome to Runar. This is a game by Lucas Magnus Studios, who also does stuff like Black Rose Wars and Nova Electis and the whole Nova Electis Chronicle stuff. This is a Viking themed battling game. It's very interesting. So we're gonna have multiple parts of this. There are some expansions that came out, which add more enemies, more clan members to play as well as some extra gameplay rules, which is I'm gonna get to in a little bit. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff in here. This first part for the core set will be a multi-part video because there's a lot of content in this big giant massive box. But what is the point of the game? First of all, before I even look at the all the different components and stuff. The first video here, we're going to look at all the overview of the components, kind of go through a brief run through of the rules. Then videos like 2 and 3 will actually go through all the different Viking clans, the heroes you get to play as well as all the other fun little cards and stuff like the enemies and all that stuff. But what is the point of the game? The general gist of it is you are trying... little picture here. You are battling your 3 warrior clan against multiple other players, 3 warrior clans, possibly with the inevitability of a nemesis, so some enemies on the board. So you do not have to play with them. You can. There are campaigns you can play through, so you can play just single, just quick battling games, or you can play through actually scenarios through a campaign and kind of like go through as you go and gain some extra items and kind of change up your crew and stuff a little bit. Just kind of cool as well. But the whole thing is about gaining victory points. That is the main goal of it. And the main way to do that is by collecting these shards. Because you're trying to find these little tiny shards, which we have little tiny Elfring here, who's holding some of the shards. Retriever runic gems, as they call them, or shards in the game, is what your main goal is going to be. Then on top of that, you can also battle each other, which battling and defeating other players can also earn you victory points for doing damage or defeating other players. Defeating another player and KOing them removes them from the game, which limits your that player's options. Instead of maybe having 3 different players to use, now they only have 2. And then also completing different events or missions to also gain points. And this could be having maybe done the most damage, having collected the most shards, or built your. You can also build up your towers and do stuff like that. So there's some other different things, but the main goal is going to be trying to complete or collect as many shards as you can. So a few things that make this game really interesting and unique is because there's no 100% you have to do it this way. Although, yes, shards are going to be your main way and quickest way to gain points, you can always triangle the other routes and do some other stuff as well. Or have a little bit more focused one where you can decide to never do combat if you don't want to. Again, it's entirely up to you. It's just kind of neat. The other thing is the clans, although they have like canonical clans, like these guys belong to, we have the Bear Clan, the Walrus Clan, the Deer Clan, and the Boar Clan in the core set. And one of the expansions adds 2 more clans to the game as well. And then another expansion actually adds like the leader of the clans, which is kind of cool because then we can have some more mixing and matching around in there. But you don't have to play those specific ones. You can rearrange and mix around any of the 3 characters as you like. So you have a lot of different options, which is really cool. Again, you can either play like just a free play mode. You can play using one of the just a one-off on the scenarios, or you could play through a full campaign, which gives you some other stuff as well. And then so it's kind of a neat idea as well. And then so lots of this is card and cube based. So the big things is just to kind of jump through some of the different components quick, is we're going to have all of our different characters we get to play as. And they're going to have different things. They can hold up to 3 cubes at a time, personal cubes, and they can have some that are collective cubes for your entire clan. And they'll all have different skills on them. So they have to have, you have to play different cards to activate these skills. but they'll have different ones on there. Now, these are the basic sides, which all have pretty simple skills to activate. Then we can actually upgrade to the higher level side. So it's basic level is a blue raggedy flag. Upside will have like a red, so, you know, silver versus gold. Then they actually get extra abilities. They get 2 different skills. So this actually becomes more of a little bit advanced gameplay. And then like this line of text here is going to show on their deck of cards how often they're going to activate these different cubes or different skills. So you can kind of, depending on which characters you team up together, they'll have more options. Then we do is we have this giant pile of cards here. But for each player, they have, I think it's 8 cards. 10 cards. They each have 10 cards. So every character always have 10 cards, have their picture on the back. And on the front, it'll show what kind of cubes. So, like, if I am playing, for example, this card, Fema gets to activate. So I get to use her miniature for the turn. So depending on which card you take out of your hand, is which one you get to activate. So you don't always get to use the same character every turn, or over and over. So it's kind of interesting there. And they'll show what cube she gets to use. And then they have, and each different character has a different set of cubes they get to do. So, like, white are wild, they can act as anything. Blue are strength, so they can be better for doing actions with having to do with attack. Green is agility, so it has better to do with movement. We don't have one on here for her, but there's also a yellow cube, which has to do with instinct, which is going to be more about collecting things. And then sometimes they'll have the ability to activate skills. So she can only activate red skills. Whereas if I do a quick one look at Halfring, like, he'll have the ability to activate some yellow skills. He has a couple more. He has some of the instinct cubes, some blues. So he's on some different things. So each one's going to have a different amount. And then they do also have these extra little cubes at the top corner up here, which at the end of your turn, then these go into your collective pool as well. So you then earn extra. So, like, you kind of have to look at both sides of the card to see what's the best for each character to do. So that's pretty cool there. So yeah, so each card's kind of dual on how it works. The other thing that's interesting about the game is it is one of these games that is semi-time based. And I say that because there's an end thing. Every turn you're going to draw a new Destiny card, which are these cards here, which are going to activate a bunch of different stuff. There's a whole pile of different cards that go into that deck. Which, like, we have this one, which is going to activate different events or effects that'll happen. We do have some that might add Doom cards, which are bad. We have some that are just going to tell you where to place stuff. They're not going to give you any extra things. So yeah, so a bunch of different extra things that can pop up. But each turn, you're going to end up doing another one of these. It's going to get rid of the shards off the board, so you didn't collect them quick enough. They're going to go away, and then the game is eventually going to end after a set number of turns. So it is one of these things where it's not, hey, we're going to play 50 turns, and then who has the most points. Or we're not playing up to 50 points to see who can get it, so one team doesn't, or one player doesn't get, you know, a super far advantage. So that is one thing that's kind of interesting about the game. Now, and I do want to get a little bit more into the rules and that, but let's look up at the rest of the components. So we do have these different stories you can play. One side has, like, if you're playing up to a 3-player, one has a 2 or 4. And the differences are the size of the maps. If you're playing a 2-player game, you're only going to play with half the map. If you're playing a 4-player game, you'll play with the entire map. This is how it gets set up. If you're playing a 3-player, you'll have a 3-player setup. It also tells if, you know, like, length, short, medium, long, different stuff like that. And this is just setup for the mode. So this is just telling you how to set the map up on each one. So you can see they're a little bit different each time. So like, look at some of these 4-players. So here, all the cubes are kind of like in the middle. But then here, we have obstacles, and enemies would be on the outside. Cubes are kind of separated a little bit more. They're in lines. So yeah, each one gives a little bit varied gameplay. So it's kind of nice to have these. I do wish I had more of them in some of the expansions, just for some variation. And then we actually have quests, or campaigns. There's Campaign A, and there's Campaign B. And then later there's an expansion, there's a Campaign C in there. And it just kind of tells you what type of cards you're going to include in there. So you're going to include this mission card, which is your setup. Specific event cards for whatever players are playing, and additional setups. And on the back, it's going to maybe just have some of the special rules for this particular one. And then each one's going to have some different things. So you're not always playing with the exact same deck of cards, too, which is very interesting. And you're not just randomly shuffling them either. Then we just have some index cards to help remind everybody, some reference cards, which are always nice, 2 for each set of players. So those are those cards. We saw our oversized cards. We do have these cards here for Destiny cards, which are going to help us, just help for lots of stuff for placing things on the board. So it's going to say which of the 4 tiles you're going to place it in. And then on each tile of the board, there's going to be one of these 9 little nodes. It's going to tell you which spot to put it in and possibly what color. Down here, it might trigger what enemy. So enemy spot 1, 2, or 3. So we just got a pile of those to do all those. We have some, I'm trying to remember what all these are, instinct cards. I believe that's what these are. These are just kind of like, you might get these throughout the game. They're all pretty much the same, but it's just going to trigger one of your first, second, or third hero, and then it gets the icons they get. It's just basically a great way for them to get like a wild bonus without having to use their other stuff. We have these advantage cards, which are used for combat. All the same thing, they just are treated as basically doing kind of like generic damage, which some will get more when we talk about combat. We can eventually, and we have the Destiny back, so you can have Doom cards if you're fighting with enemies. Basically bad stuff that can happen to you. Never a good thing, right? The other Destiny cards we can get in here. Some have stuff for enemies. Some have little events on here. So like the first, players with at least 1 trophy gain a point. So this helps you at the end of the game. Now the bottom corner, they'll have the numbers to say which ones are added. So again, not all these are used every game. Some have instant effects. Some have, some have permanent effects, some have instant effects. Some different things on each one. So these can pop up throughout the game, changing things up. We have some actual quests we can do, some different missions. So these are different missions we're trying to do. So this is what everyone's trying to do to compete for extra points at the end of the game. We do have, of course, enemies. So each enemy gets a little miniature card, which has like some various stats on them. What rank there? There's a rank 1, 2, and 3. And there's various numbers of models for each one. So we're kind of neat there as well. And then they each have their own little set of cards. So on the back, it'll say which ones they are for each one. So they each have their, as they're playing through using them, you're going to end up drawing cards from them. So they have a little bit of randomization to their thing. Then the last 2 little decks we have is we have artifacts, which are, if you're playing campaign, you can get some of the really rare, famous stuff like Gungar or, Gleipnir or Milnir. You can get some artifacts, which then you can be added into your game to make your characters more powerful. Playing one-off games, you can always add some extra. And then you can also get some various equipment as well. Marks of a bunch of the different gods, Thor, Loki, get various equipment you can add boots, eyes, a dwarven shovel, a shield. So that's really neat. And then expansions do add some more of these as well. And then the last little thing we have on here is we just have some, what are these called again? Obstacles cards. Just explaining how these different obstacles on the board are done. So we have some different ones. We'll build some crates, some menhirs, and some cairns. And how you interact with them and destroy them. So yeah, there's our basic set of cards. We do have our miniatures here, which we'll look at more in depth with each one, but we have some of the bad guys who are all cast in this like powdery blue because they're Jotuns from Jotunheim, the icy world. So yeah, we have some like ice trolls there, some bigger ones. We do get a bunch of smaller ones, and they each have their own little black base just to help set them apart, especially if you paint them. Then we have all of our clan warriors, who they do have these ring bases on them, which if you're familiar with like Black Rose Wars and stuff, they're they're pretty much the same idea. But now they do have them on there, but you don't have to keep them on there. The 1, 2, and 3 are just so you know which one activates per which one. But yeah, if I pop one of these guys out, like if I want to use him, I can pop his base up very easily and put him into a different color. So they're not stuck at those colors. But yeah, we have 12 different ones. We have basically it's like the gear, the boar, each one. And then again, so the expansions will add some more characters. So the last thing we didn't look at in here yet are some of the boards. We have 4 player boards, all the exact same, but each one kind of goes towards a different clan. Just so you can kind of tell your colors apart really easy, otherwise they all have the exact same information. It's basically your main deck, your discard pile, your memory pile where you put stuff. If you have shards, you can gather some there. Your artifacts and trophies if you have here. Sorry, this is your deck. This is where your active card is, and you put your tokens down here, your cubes, as you earn them. And then this is damage you've done to other players, and then it goes down here as damage that kind of gets saved. We have big giant destiny boards. This is your tracker. And these are double-sided because they're going to be based on the number of players you're playing. So this is like for a 1-player game, you're only going to play a couple of rounds. If we jump over to the 2-player, you're going to play a few more rounds. And then some of the numbers on here are just showing how many crystals will be available. So there's only 4 crystals. And then once you play a card, there'll only be 3, and then 2, then 1, and then so on. Keeping track of all your points. We have another board here for the 3 players, and then one finally for the 4 players, which goes the entire length of the board. And then we have a Nemesis board, which has 2 sides for different number of players as well. And this is where you put your different villains you're going to fight, their deck. And then when they do damage, they have their cards as well. Yeah, so very cool. That's that. We have 4 big giant cards for reminding you what you can do. This is what your different cubes are going to do, which we did not look at those. We do have here's our cubes. I mean, nothing too terribly special, just some black cubes. Not black, wooden cubes, sorry. But yeah, your 3 different cubes are basically, your green is going to be moving or pushing things, and then some have reactions. If you have cubes, you can chase somebody down. Your instant cubes are going to help you collect shards of the yellow ones. Or you save them for defense or aggression to do some extra damage. Blue is for strength for collecting blue shards, attacking or triggering various things. And then white is your wild, which has copy, switch, or collect a different one. So yeah, pretty interesting. So it's also neat because all these cubes out there, you can only collect them if you have the cube of a certain color and if you're in the right area. And on the back side, it's just going to kind of walk us through our phases, which is pretty easy. Start your turn, use your tactics. Your action phase, you play a card from your hand. Then you just spend your cubes to do different stuff. Once you're done with that, then you use your support phase, which is basically where you gain some extra cubes, redraw your hand. And then Destiny phase is where you're going to place new cards on the board. You see what happens next, advance the turn essentially. Then the Nemesis gets to go if they have anything, end of turn. And here's some of the different tactics you can do. You can coordinate, fortify, charge, build some stuff, equip things. So we have some just different stuff you can do beforehand. We'll go over that more when we look at the rules. Look at all our different tokens here. We have debris token. So if you destroy an object, it kind of takes up a space. There's some trophies for defeating players. Your clan tokens. Your blue shards, we flip them over. They're yellow on the other side. We have our Runar, which is our big fancy gem we're trying to collect at the end, the control of, basically. cards which get in the way. We have some danger tokens, which just are like traps that you can place around the board. We do have some crates. You have to build all your crates. We have some stones you get to build. So we're going to have them in different colors. So there's going to be a 3-tier, a 2-tier, and a 1-tier. And then eventually a spot for a flame of your color. And you gain extra points for building those. Your clan tokens. We have shields to help protect yourself. We have some player tokens. So this way you can keep track of which player is doing certain things in certain spots. And the backside those are all gray. They don't really need to be colored. Oops. Then we have the other two. We have the like tan or yellow and blue clans. Some more crates, some more tokens. And then finally we have the board, which I haven't really looked at too much, or haven't shown you guys yet. I got my thumb stuck in the middle of it. I think for how many board games I have, I'd be better at that. So, yeah, here's a big, giant board you're going to play on. And then here's what also makes the game kind of interesting, because you're going to set up one of these boards. You're not going to use every single part of this entire board necessarily. So if I'm playing a 4-player game, I will use every single part of this. But if I'm playing a 2-player, you're only going to play half. I think it says use like the left or right half, but I don't think it matters if you use the top or the bottom, because they're all, as long as you're using 2 adjacent sides, they're all this. They should all be set up the same. But yeah, so then you'll kind of play the half a board in there. So it's kind of neat. Then you have like your different little nodes on here, which you'll set stuff to. And when you're moving your characters around the board, they move from node to node, so it can take a while to get around the board. So yeah, like if you're up in this spot and you need to collect a shard, if you're on that spot there, you have to go 1, 2, 3, or 4, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can go diagonal, but it counts as 2, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So yeah, to get to blue, it takes five movements each, yellow. So it's not going to be like, hey, I'm going to necessarily get a thing every single turn, because you have to make sure you have that cube available. You haven't spent it doing something else or a reaction. As well, but there's also like cubes in the middle of the board you can collect. And again, we'll see if you have the different setups there. For like 4-player games, like here, a bunch of these are behind the obstacles, so you basically have to try and run around the obstacles to get stuff, get back behind things to do it. But it's also interesting because you're like, oh, well, if I'm starting up here, then why can't I just stay here? Because the way the game actually places your characters is you place one character in your clan zone, which would be one of these 4 areas. And then you place one in one of the other areas, and then a third one in the other area. So your characters don't all start in the same spot. So that actually makes that kind of interesting as well. And if we flip this board over, on the other side is just the 3-player board. So it has the 3 spots there, which again, it's kind of neat that they just have that pre-set up already. So you don't have to like try and remember to not use these 2 corners. So yeah, that is the basis of what all of our components and all that stuff are. So I'm going to do a quick run through on the rule book, and then we'll end the first part of this video. Alright, so for Runar, the rule book, I want to start off by saying I have a love-hate relationship with this book. It goes into a lot of detail explaining how everything is done, which is great. That's something you definitely want in a game. The problem, though, is I pretty much had to read the entire thing front to back a couple of times to completely understand what I'm supposed to be doing, because it kind of just throws all the information out there at you, And it's like, okay, so set up the board, do this, and you gotta set up the deck like this, then do this. On your turn, you can do this and this and this, and then do this. Sometimes there's little examples of pictures. Sometimes there's not. There are other times it's explained in text, so they probably figured we didn't get. I would have loved, at least at some point, although it would have been nice maybe going through the book, going through, like, explaining how a full turn works. Like, just have it being like, player A is going to do this, and then they're going to do this and this with these cubes and do this, then this, and then they're going to do this and this. And I almost should have went like a 2 different turn, because there's a couple of times, during the Destiny phase, if you've collected a shard, you do one thing. If you don't collect a shard, do another thing. It would have almost been nice to have almost like a 2-page spread, just explain, like, visually showing that a little bit more. Again, they do have pictures in here, but some of it, like, got confusing. Like, even the point of the game is to collect the shards to get victory points. Well, it kind of mentions, get victory points. Here's 4 ways you can do it. It's a hefty book as well. There's some of our towers that were built. Here's one of our campaign sheets. So that way you can keep track of your characters, your different stuff, things like that. Game icons. So it immediately just jumps into the campaign. So it's like, hey, we're assuming you're going to play a campaign. Not playing a campaign? Alright, the game still works, just ignore anything that says campaign. Not saying that's necessarily a bad way to do it, because you're going to set everything up the same way. Just, I guess you could have done it either way, but then you would have had to keep referring back to the campaign area. But yeah, so just mention the objective of the game. Score the most victory points whenever a player gains 1 point to advance their tokens. Do the following by collecting yellow-blue shards, inflicting damage, or knocking out rival models. Build the flame parts of the statue in their territory, meeting requirements on mission or event cards. So yeah, it's kind of like, oh, here's your different ways to do it. But what it kind of should have almost been was like, the goal of the game is to collect shards. That's what it should have said, because that is generally not only the best way to gain victory points, it's kind of the focus. It's like a race to collect the most shards the fastest. Because every single turn, after each player takes a turn, you draw a destiny card. Either you've gathered a shard, and then the game keeps going, or if you haven't gathered a shard, you remove one from the board. So it's showing here, like, on the beginning of the game, there's 8 shards on the board. Then the next turn, there's only going to be 7, because either someone picked one up, or you have to remove one. Then there will be 6. So if you're not picking up the shards, they're going to just start disappearing anyhow. So really, that's a good focus point to get it. And then the other stuff was like, hey, here's some additional stuff you can also do to help you out. And yes, there's advantages to defeating players, because every time you do damage to them, it's beneficial. We'll get into that in just a minute. Yeah, player. First to the player, participant in the game. Player's turn refers to the player's playing. First player refers to the player's first player token. And then leader refers to the player who has the most victory points. The depository is just basically the game box. It's pretty simple there. This just kind of explains how hero cards work. Pretty simple. Top just has if they have movement. If they spend a movement cube, how many spaces they can move. So each character can move a little bit differently. If you're playing at their advanced side, they also gain a passive ability. This line here just shows what their action deck has in them. This is how many shields they can get. You could get up to 3, but they only start with 2 of them. And then their abilities. It's usually they keep one ability on one side, and then they just gain a second on their better side. And then when you put your characters down on your card, you're just going to match up the little icon with whichever thing you know. So then you can just tell them really quickly, oh, that's star number 1, that's 2 star, that's 3 star. Very simple there. Kind of explained this. There's a territory, which is a full big square. Zones are broke up into the 4 smaller squares, and each node is in there. So something like, say, do something in a zone. That was our destiny cards here. It's saying pick a territory here. And then it's saying, there's explanation on which one to pick from, and then it's saying, because little arrows on the board, so you always space this whichever way the arrow is for whatever character you're playing. So there's a little arrow down there. So if it's this one, it would be that arrow up. But if I was playing with this character, I would, in that zone, I'd go down. So it'd always be a different one there. And that's one of those different nodes in there. Models are broke up pretty interestingly. Very easy to figure out, I think. Basically, dark is bad. Either it's a rival hero or a rival model. If it's gray, it's an ally. If it's both, it's either. And then it's either just general models, allies, or enemies. And then there's nemesis, can be both. Can be either light or dark, depending on which one you're doing. Enemy refers to a miniature belonging to the nemesis. Because the nemesis isn't always present. Adjacency is pretty simple. This just kind of explains how your movement and all that stuff is. Adjacent is anything in the 9 directionals. Game elements such as model, obstacles, or token are just adjacent as long as they're next to each other. Measuring distance. Measure distance between 2 nodes, counting 1 space from proceeding orthogonally or up, down, left, right, and 2 when proceeding diagonally. So it's just showing that here. So it's 1 space to go there, but it counts me 2 to go there. So essentially it could be like saying if you can't go diagonal, you have to go 1 space, 2 space. But it does let you go diagonal. But you can't go generally diagonal through something else. And that's just kind of showing some of these other different examples. Let's say this does have some good pictures in there. Sometimes they're a little cluttered. But this is showing here, like, you can't go through a crate. Is basically what that's saying. This guy, they want to move here. They could spend 1, 2, 3, 4 to move over there to go around the crate. Whereas if the crate wasn't there, they could go 1, 2. So it costs extra to go up and around. This guy could go straight all the way across. This guy's jumping. So moving means moving 1, 2, 3. If it says place your character, then you just jump them to the next spot. So pretty simple. We got some obstacles in the game that will get in the way. And then the cards will explain how they work on each one. And some of the, again, expansions add a few more obstacles to the game. Your player board. I'm not going to get into too much detail and all this. Just basically put all your cards, destiny board, sets up all that stuff. Your missions will go over here for the game. So everyone knows what you're trying to achieve. H is an access indicator, so it's just showing where your different players, your different decks are going to be. You have a spot down here for enemy tokens, which might pop up. I'll get into a little bit more of some of that when we get into actually playing through the game a little more. But your scenario cards is describing and what to do, what mission events. If you have any enemy cards, additional setups, stuff like that. Various things there. Destiny cards, event cards, and Doom cards. So these all get shuffled in and create the actual Destiny deck. The Destiny deck, there's a lot of these are going to kind of just explain where something will get placed. Event cards will add different effects, and Doom cards are generally bad, but Doom cards usually only pop in during a campaign mode. So game setup is pretty simple. Just grab all your components for your color. Choose your hero. They do have the characters again listed as their different warbands, but you can pick and mix and match as you like. Then you're going to take your card, your hero, and their 10-card deck. If you are playing with advanced stuff, you could also use treasure cards, or if you're playing campaign, you'll get treasures. You eventually build up a treasure over multiple things, so you can have multiple treasure cards to use as well. But again, you always select some of them early on if you'd like. Here's the campaign sheet. Just filling out all this area, just like write the name of which character you have, what treasure cards you ended up with, stuff like that. And then you'll keep track of like where the points are in each game, and then what the nemesis also gained if they gained any points in that game. Just so you can keep track of everything. Pretty simple. Select your scenario card, pick where you're going to go. Set up your board. So this is what your board would look like. Set up your Destiny deck is ready to go. You have a couple of cards already face down just to show where your stopping point is. Those are already on the board. And then we have our couple of decks sitting around. There's your arrow card. Then your Nemesis board is just sitting there ready to go. And that's something you can always do here too, right? If you're playing like a 2-player game, you can always stick this Nemesis board halfway on the board, or the Destiny board, just to kind of set that track off. Building the Destiny deck is kind of one of these tricky things. Because basically you're going to do is you have to take the events that are picked on the scenario card, mix them with the Destiny cards, create a couple of stacks so that they show up in each different pile, just so that they're not all at the top or all mixed in. So you're actually hitting these. So let's say every couple of Destiny cards you are going to hit one of these event cards so that something triggers to keep going. Pretty simple there. Play area, put your token in one of the corners, that's your side. Just so everyone knows, set up your deck, artifact cards, get your tokens all ready. Pretty simple there. Battlefield, just going to show you your things. So you have a couple of different stuff on there. We have the base of a statue, so your statue is going to be in one of those 4 corners, whichever one your clan picked. The different obstacles. Place any obstacle indicated on the first player must choose the type of obstacle from those available. So, like, if they, for example, pick the crate as the purple one, then all 4 purple ones are going to be a crate. And then if the next player is picking brown, picks the Karn, all 4 brown ones are going to be the Karn. So that's also kind of makes this kind of neat, because you can play the same map multiple times by just rearranging all the obstacles. It's not going to change the game a huge ton, but it could set it up a little bit differently based on which ones they are and where they are. And then again, when you get to the some of the expansion, we add some more obstacles. It actually makes that a little bit more interesting. Placing danger tokens down where the little skulls are. Those are just things you can interact with. Placing cubes on the board of the colors, your shards. And then some of them have the little Nemesis skull, which ignore if there's not a Nemesis in play. And then, yeah, when I say we have to place your heroes down, the player playing last gets to place one of their face-down tokens in the position. So this is also kind of neat. So you have your three tokens with the 1, 2, and 3 diamonds on them. I keep calling them stars with their diamonds, clearly. So you're going to place them in one of the spots, and then somebody else will place it. But you place them face down. So your opponent doesn't know which of your Warband heroes you put in which area until you guys flip them all up. And then once you flip them up, then you just move your character onto the board. So that's kind of neat as well. Yeah, and then they put this. The first player puts one of their face-down tokens in a node that contains an action cube that are part of their territory, and they take that action cube, so you just start with whichever color, so you can kind of help dictate what your first turn might even be. Repeat the previous step, but the position token must be placed on a node that is not part of your territory, and then repeat the previous step third time, in just any node that is still free. Draw position tokens over, and then, so yeah. The first one has to be in yours, the second one has to be in one that is not your territory, and then the third one can be anywhere else. So cool. Alright, so what's a turn? Beginning of the game, the first player takes a turn. After all the phases, the next player takes their turn clockwise. Till the end of the game, each turn is divided by the phases below. So, start your turn, you have a tactical phase, which you can coordinate, charge, fortify, build, or equip. Then you do your action phase, which lets you spend some more stuff. As well as playing your action card. Support phase, where you get some extra cubes, redraw your hand. Destiny phase, where you're gonna, like, get rid of tokens, shards, place some more down, stuff like that. End of the turn, the Nemesis gets to go, and then the end of the turn. And now, again, you could just choose to only attack the Nemesis and never attack one of the other players if you want. That's a viable option as well. Alright, so here's where things can start to get a little tricky, because there's a lot of stuff to look at. So I'm not going to go over these in too much depth, but we do have tactical phase here. You can spend action cubes from the Further pool to perform the tactics listed below. It has different colors, you can use either one. So coordinate, draw cards from their action deck. Each one can be drawn from the top or the bottom of the pile. Player has more than 3 action cards in their hand. They discard till they have 3. So you can only have 3 at a time, but maybe you have 2 from one character, 1 from another, and you want to try and get 1 for the third character for whatever reason. Or you need a different setup, or you need a specific color cube. It's definitely something you can do. Charge to move their ally hero that is not adjacent to a rival model is in a zone containing no rival models nor shards. And place on a free zone next to the one they're in. So basically, if there's nobody in your area, you can spend a movement ahead of time that is not adjacent to somebody else. It is not in an area with any rivals or shards. So if we jump back to our little board here with our board on one of these maps, right? So, like, it would happen to be like, let's say I'm up here and there's no shards in here, there's no enemies, right? I could use my charge to basically move into this area somewhere. And the idea of that is just, it's because there's so few turns, you don't want to be like, oh, on my turn, I can only move two nodes, and then you're like, good, okay, now I have to spend turn 3, good. You know, and it's taking you 3 turns to get into an area with a shard. If there's nothing around you, there's no one to attack, there's nothing to collect, you can charge your guy across the field a lot quicker. There's nothing to distract you. So it's a neat thing so you can get into play quicker. We have Fortify, choose one of their ally heroes. Fewer defense tokens in their symbol, so basically boost up your defense a little bit more. Build, add to the party your statue. And this can have some various effects as well. And then you can equip, if you have a treasure, you can go ahead and place one on your hero. Or you can take one off your hero and put it back in there for free. So those are pretty cool. One thing to also mention in here, just as long as we're going over this, you can look at action cards, turn cards, action cards in each player's memory pile, but you cannot change the order. The cards in each player's damage area, inflicted damage area. If required by a game effect, search the bottom of your action deck by looking at the backs of those cards. So there might be a thing where it's like, I have my cards like this, and I need to look at something at the bottom. I can do this, and I can I'm going to draw a card, right? So you have to look at, I'm looking for a specific character to take damage or something, right? I can look until I find it, but you can't change the order of it. So a lot of interesting stuff with playing with the bottom of your deck as well. Alright. So our action cards basically have the two things. They have the cards, the effects we get during the action phase, and then what we get during the support phase. So playing an action card, choose an action card, put it in your action card slot, gain those 2 cubes. Does cube order matter? No, it does not. If you need to gain more room, discard any cube. So it's like, oh, listen, I have too many yellow, I didn't need the extra yellow, discard it, place your next one down. So you're not losing the extra cubes, you can always get rid of ones you don't need to get the new one in there, but hopefully you're spending them quick enough. Perform actions. On your turn, players can spend their action cubes to perform actions with their active hero. Additionally, if there's a skill symbol on the card, they can also use a single use of the corresponding skill. So if I played a card that had, like his has yellow and white, I gain a white cube that can do anything, and I can play a yellow skill. So like, he wouldn't be able to use a yellow skill. Probably I'd be using Halfring because Halfring is my yellow character, who I played a card for, right? So I could play, if I'm using this side, I could use a yellow or a red or blue. But you could also, if I have another character in here that has a yellow, such as Helga, I could play a Halfring card and use Helga's ability if I am having Helga be my active character for the turn. I said that wrong, though. Whoever card you play is your active character. Sorry. Yeah, so whoever you play, turn play action card. So the ally hero featured on the active hero for their current turn. So whoever's card you play is your active character. Sorry. I can't use her ability because I don't have that skill. Sorry. I messed up on that one. When a player's turn has no more action cubes in their pool, they choose not to perform an action, the action phase ends. So you can either end it early, you can always save your cubes. You might for counter actions. Support, turn the card sideways, gain the extra cube. So it's kind of a neat thing because it's not like, hey, if I have 5 cubes, I shouldn't spend them, so I might need them for reactions. When you know you could get 1 or 2 from your memory card as well. The Destiny phase is where the game gets a little tricky. I had to reread this a ton of times. So I'm going to kind of just give you a brief summary of this. Basically, if there are any shard tokens on the current player's board, so if you capture a shard that turn, you're going to draw an event card. Actually, it says here first. There are no shard tokens on the player's board. Draw a card from the Destiny card. If it is an event card, place it face up on the board. And then discard a token shard that's somewhere on the board. So that way you can see how many are left. So every time you draw an event, it goes away. They draw a Destiny card, and there are no danger tokens in the pool. They discard a face-up Destiny card in their pool. So now, the turn's not going to go... the game's not just going to necessarily always be, 8 turns long, because it goes until you draw one of these event cards, then one of the advances on the board. So I could draw... So let's say if in that pile A, there was 5 cards, 4 of them were Destiny cards, and 1 was an event card, I could potentially go 4 turns, player A, player B, player C, player D, and then player A would come back around, they might draw the event card. But you could also get, potentially, player A does their first turn, they get the event card right away, but then now you're into, you have 4 turns before you get to the next one. So yeah, it's not saying the game is going to end in 8 turns when the board fills up after each player's turn, but it's going to advance eventually. So the longer you take to collect those shard tokens, they might eventually start disappearing. And then we also have, so if you had at least 1 shard token, then you're going to draw again if you have an event card that goes on the board. But then you discard that shard token off your board. If you have another one, then you keep doing that until you don't. So the more shard tokens you collect, so if I collected 3 on my turn, I would get to draw 3 cards, basically. I might hit until I hit an event. So I might advance the game that much quicker. So that's why picking up the shards can speed up the game a lot faster. That's basically what's going to happen there. And then when you draw a Destiny card, you're going to align your Destiny card. So that's one of these guys right here. Again, when we get one of these, it's going to tell you where to put stuff back on the board. Because it wants to keep them shards on there. So anytime I played shards, I want to play some extra ones. Usually a player draws a Destiny card and they must align to the territory. Place the card or the arrow align the directional arrow of their territory and each node. For example, below the gear player draws a Destiny card. They're going to go down into their spot. It's going to show it's in that first corner, and they're going to put one in that first node on that corner. Then by consulting the second diagram in B, they identify a specific node in each of the zones. Placing a danger token or shard token. In the case for a shard, Destiny requires which color it might be put in there. So it's going to depend on what you're doing. You might place a danger token. If you have no shards, you place a danger token. You created extra threats on the board. If you did pick up a shard, then you're going to put 1 back down. So if you didn't take any off the board, and they said you're still supposed to be 8 on the board, there's still 8 on the board. If you picked up a shard, you're going to put 1 back down, basically. And you're going to keep doing that over and over. And it kind of keeps track of how many are on there at all times. So cool. It's more complicated than it needed to be. And again, that's where I wish they would have had a playthrough on a turn there. On my turn, my character does this, does this, does this. They don't pick up any shards. Then you go through, this is what happens. Then player B goes, oh look, they picked up a shard. Then player C went, they drew an event card. I don't do the destiny part of it then. I don't draw the aligning stuff. And that would have been a nice way, even if they waited till the very end and then done the Nemesis space. But up to that point, they would have kind of just given a brief example of what each player could have done. Then you do the Nemesis phase. If it's not participating, skip the phase. If they do, check the enemy's deck, release one model of the enemy representing the topmost deck of the battlefield. The player chooses one of those models. There are no models that are going to be represented. So what that's basically saying is if the top card goes for my Halo Splinty, as long as there's one on the board, and I think there's 8 models of that, then I get to activate your card. Otherwise, they might have a respawn effect. The topmost card that shows enemies release one model field. No card with a respawn has been revealed. Then you actually do the effect on there. And it applies effect. It's just going to try and do some stuff. So it's pretty simple there. There's an enemy regeneration. If there are any enemy tokens or models on the player's turn, you can press to determine the minimum number of enemies it should be on the battlefield. As long as there is one, you draw the top card of the Destiny deck, and you align it. So you do the same thing, and it's going to show you in the bottom corner which one attacks. I love the fact that these alignment cards are always going to kind of have an idea of what you're supposed to be doing. They're going to kind of, it says from the Destiny discard set. That way you know you're not drawing one from the deck. It kind of shows which one's going to activate and do different stuff, trying to attack you or whatever. Player discards one of the enemy model tokens on their player board. If there are enemy tokens still on the player's turn, repeat point A. You'll eventually gain enemy tokens that show how many you'll activate. So basically, the more things you do, they kind of trigger. So pretty cool there. Alright, action, reactions, and stills and cubes. So they have all these different ones. Normally the color shows what color cube you have to spend. If it has a lightning bolt, it's a reaction. Can be used during action. Cannot be used during your action phase, but can be used during somebody else's phase to do stuff. Declaring actions. Basically, say you're going to declare it, spend the element. Pretty simple. The action will resolve before the action declared is taken. Then some are hybrids, which use different ones. Certain skills are effect assign action cubes to a specific hero. These cubes can be placed in the personal hero's cubes. So that way they have access to them. They can either use for regular actions or reactions. So if you're using agility cubes, you have movements. Spend it, move that many spaces. We kind of went over movement before, so I'm not going to get into too in-depth on that. Push, a model performs this action, pushes a model. The target cannot be moved into the node they're in. They take damage. This is why I love where they show pictures. So, once to move in that space, there's a guy in the way, or that one, there's a crate, they take a point of damage. Or they're trying to move and they can't go diagonally between two different objects. They'll take a point of damage. There's the chase. Here you can perform the reaction when a rival ends a movement when they leave a node adjacent to them. So if they were next to them and then they run away, you can chase after them. Just to kind of keep up with them. Up to your maximum speed value. So it's a great way to kind of keep close to guys. With strength cubes, you can collect blue shard tokens. Note that it says, is in the same node as them or an adjacent node not occupied by a rival. The player places in it. So that's the thing. So enemies staying near you are going to prevent you from picking up shards. This is where the combat then comes in. Because some people I read online were like, oh, just collect shards. Why even worry about combat? Because if your opponent's staying on top of you, you can't collect shards. So it is in the same node as them or an adjacent one not occupied by a rival model. As long as rivals stay near a shard, if they didn't pick it up yet, then you can't take it. You can attack someone, does damage, and then you can also trigger. For this action, targets in a danger token and moves it one node. You can shove a damage token somewhere else, or a danger token. Danger tokens may be moved by a node by occupying the model. If you throw it into somebody, then they take damage. So very cool. Alright, instant cubes, collecting yellow shards. Defense, if you have at least one defense token, may use this as a reaction to cancel an attacker push against them. But if you don't have any defense tokens, you can't do it. This is where then you gotta use your white one to heal. And then aggression. Cause a reaction when adjacent rival declares they'll perform a collector movement action before they perform, deal 1 damage to them. So again, staying near a guy means, hey, I'm gonna collect this token, but you're near them, you can go ahead and damage them. And then while lets you copy any other abilities. Switch lets you switch the activation to another hero, chosen by the turn player to become the active hero. So this could be very good if I play one character's card, I can switch to another hero instead. And then collect shard tokens of the same node as them, or an adjacent node that is not occupied by a rival. So as long as, again, they're not on that shard token. And then hero skills. If you have a skill, only the hero representing a card showing the skill can use it. A skill allows a hero to perform. Getting action cubes must be placed on their personal board unless skill performs something other than one of the hero using it on a node. Counts as being adjacent to the target. So, interesting. And then damage. Alright. So sorry this video is a little bit long. I know this is a thick book, but we needed to go through all this. So damaging is really interesting. So, models can suffer damage in various ways. Most commonly is attack or push actions, as well as danger tokens. Some damage is known as direct, is more dangerous than normal. So damage works very interesting in this game, because your characters don't have general health. It's not like this character has 3 health, this has 5 health, or they all have 3 health total. Or it's not even like your Warband has X number of health. Your health are your action cards. So each hero technically has 10 health cards. Every time you take damage, you're potentially going to lose one of those cards. Which means the first time you take damage, now you only have 9 cards left to use. Then you take 2 damage. Now you're down to 8 cards, 7 cards, 6 cards, so on and so forth. You'll make your characters less effective. Because they're losing the ability to gain them shards, gain them skill cards. Some of these characters, like for example, just if we look at Ifima here, so she has a couple of colorless ones which are really nice. When we get to the end, she has 1, 2, 3. She only has 3 that provide skills. So once she loses all 3 of those, she can't perform skills anymore. And that could be very bad for you. So when a hero suffers damage, the player controlling the damaged character must flip on. Again, this is somewhat convoluted, and it took me many reads to kind of figure this out, so I'm going to kind of briefly go over some of this. But it says discard a defense token belonging to the hero who suffered the damage, and then that player gains an advantage card. So we had these advantage cards you get are basically like, if you don't take a hero card, you get an advantage card instead. Which will explain more on what that means in a moment. But if you have one of the little shield icons, like this guy, Brandir, can take 1 point of shield. Some guys can take more, some guys can take less. Makes him a little bit beefier for guys. So you could get rid of your defense token instead. If not, you give an action card belonging to the hero suffer damage to the player or the nemesis who inflicted the damage. Is either given from your hand or the bottom of the action deck. So you might have to search through the deck. So if you got a card in your hand you're not willing to give up, you can go through the bottom of your deck until you find that character's card. So again, it would be like, oh, I need to find my next character. I gotta go into, oh, I found his card. And you could get rid of the first card. You have no idea what it is. Yeah, then they get your card. So now you lost that. If a hero suffers damage, the control player has no more cards for that deck in their deck or their hand. That player is KO'd. During these steps, it's critical the opponents are unable to count how many action cards for the hero who suffered the damage remain in the owner's deck. So yeah, when you're attacking, you're not allowed, like normally you could kind of look and count people's cards, but when you're immediately doing the attack, you're not then allowed to stop and count. There's also direct damage. A hero suffers direct damage is exactly as if they suffer damage. However, the controller player cannot choose to discard a defense token. Alright, so obtaining advantage cards or action cards. So basically, I'm just not going to really read over all this. But basically, this is how it works. Is if I damage the player, this is me. This is my player board, right? I damage this player. They give me one of their cards. I put it on one of these two slots here. It says a little helmet or a little icon card. I can actually grab the board and we can look at that a little bit closer, right? So I'm going to put it on one of these two spots. It's either their card or one of those aforementioned advantage cards. So that's going to take up one of those spots. And then what it's going to say is if I get another damage card. If it is the same one as the same character, I put it back on there. So if I keep hitting the same character multiple times, I keep stacking their cards on here. If it is not, if it is either a different character or an advantage card that doesn't match, I put it in the other slot. So eventually I'm going to have both slots filled up. Then what happens, I hit a third thing, whether it was a second character or it was a third thing without the defense, without the advantage cards. I'm going to take that card plus one card from each of these decks and put it into my inflicted damage area. So hitting guys blocking the shield or hitting multiple different characters will get you cards going to this inflicted damage area quicker. If I keep hitting the same character over and over, it's going to keep stacking up in this one pile. And eventually they're going to run out of shields. But eventually I'm going to run to the point where I have to put them in there. Except then what will happen is that card will go down there because it doesn't match them. And then one of these cards will go over here and the advantage cards go away. So they're saying these, it's just kind of showing here is, once I have to put one of these cards in here, if I have both of these filled and I have to add next one, that's when I start gaining my points. So your first damage, you don't do anything. Your second damage, you don't do anything. But by the time you get your next one, then you start getting it. But what'll happen is, because, right, it could be advantage card, player card, and then I hit a third guy. It's going to go over there. I'm going to empty both of these out. So I have to just kind of start over again. So combat I can get where people are like, combat's a little monotonous in that sense. Because basically, like, hitting more guys is better than just focusing straight up on one. But on the other hand, as soon as you KO someone, they don't have any cards left. So right here it says, they take all their advantage cards among these cards in your corresponding deck. Player gains one victory point and good. So you have to basically get to that third thing. But when a hero is KO'd, their models removed from the battlefield, their defense tokens, action cards, from their memory, and any action turn cards that have their depository are done. Any treasure of them must be placed up in the treasury. Player or nemesis controlling them gains one victory point, a trophy token, and an advantage card. So they already start with an advantage card, which is kind of cool. But they also gain a trophy, which could be useful for completing events or missions. The player's out of cards defeat has at least one hero card that is not killed. They draw an inspiration card. For the rest of the game, any hero killed may not recover any of that hero's action cubes obtained by the opponents, even if an effect would allow them to do so. An ally KO are actions in the game, any rules that take into account them. So they do get one of them cool inspiration cards because their character died. They get an inspiration to try and move them forward, so they get a little bonus card to make up for it. But yes, it's basically how it's going to go. And they're not considered to be in the game for effects of other things. Then we have danger tokens. Indicates a danger node, trigger various reasons. In the following cases, a danger token triggers on a model and puts indirect or direct damage consciously being inflicted by the active hero. if an ally hero moves or places a Ganger token into a space containing a rival model, they take damage. A ally places a rival model into a space containing it, they take damage. When an ally hero, not an enemy, performs a trigger action targeting a Ganger, is in the same space of an enemy token, they can trigger the enemy. No Ganger tokens do not trigger an enemy or place enemy tokens containing Ganger tokens. Yes, basically moving around or doing stuff you can do extra damage. When Ganger token triggers must be removed from the battlefield, placing a Ganger pool on the Destiny board. It will return during the Destiny phase. Then there's some neutral damage. Whenever a hero suffers damage does not result to be rival models, such as a card says take some damage. It is considered neutral damage. Most common cases are an active hero triggers a Ganger token, moving on to the node with it, or collecting a shard token from it. Sometimes there's Ganger tokens on a shard. If a hero is pushed into a Ganger token in the same node as an ally with a trigger action, is pushed or placed by an ally, so they might push him away for some reason. When they suffer neutral damage per proceed spell, they discard their discarded action cards placed at the bottom of their memory of the player controlling that ally hero. It does not do your support cubes. Each opponent player nemesis receives an advantage card, and if the hero is KO'd, but all opponents and players gain one card and draw an advantage card. So yeah, sometimes you might put yourself into danger. Basically, it means you don't get your support cards, your support cubes for that turn. So it's definitely a downside of doing that. But you don't at least no one else gains your cards. You still get to keep it for later. But your opponents can get the advantage token. Basic hat, you fumbled up, so they get an extra thing against you. Alright, so we have event cards. When they're revealed, any Doom cards is coming during the campaign. Doom cards basically have bad stuff that happens to you. But that's only for campaign. Event cards come out. They could have an instant effect, which is A. They could have an enhancement event, which is B. Which are the white ones. Missions, which are C, so could add an additional mission to the board as well. Or they could have stuff that affects the nemesis. So yeah, they just come in, they're going to affect the board in various ways. Advantage cards, they get to go in your damage slot. Inspiration cards, gain in various ways throughout the game, such as building the head of your statue. Things. Essentially, there's an extra card in your deck, which gives you, for any player, it gives you wild cubes and a wild inspiration, or a wild skill. They're very good to have, if you can get a hold of them. Then we have treasure cards. I'm not going to go into a lot about right now, but just the general ideas. Campaigns will tell you which ones, including each one. Marks are just quick effects, but marks have a little timer, sand timer on them, which basically are 1 per game effects. So once you use it, it goes away. So you get this effect, you use it, and that goes away. Equipment just gets you extra abilities or skills. And then artifacts are just super powerful ones. You're only getting artifacts by winning the game during a campaign or for the 5th game. So, and if you're playing solo games, you're not playing campaigns, you can opt to, give everyone one of these cards or do something just to speed the game up a little bit. We have obstacles. Occupied nodes, heroes cannot pass through these. No codes can be placed or moved onto them. Additional nodes occupying obstacles cannot be used to measure distance. So basically, you can't walk through them. Just gonna say if they have signs, if they're possibly movable, like you could push a crate into somebody else. If you destroy them, debris tokens get placed down. Does not occupy the node it is in, so you can place other tokens on them. Cannot be moved or removed from the battlefield. If a debris is placed in a spot that has a character, they suffer direct damage. If a hero wants to enter a space with it, that's just been 1 additional movement point. So, yeah, some destroying objects can be helpful so you can get around the board quicker. They could damage guys, but they also could slow you down later. And some, like the crates, are movable, which you can push and slam into somebody else, which is kind of fun. They go up health values. Optical health value is considered by a rival model. if they are destroyed, suffer damage equal to their health value within a single turn. So, like, a Memnar needs to take 2 hits during a single turn to be destroyed, where a crate only needs 1. The object to destroy is removed from the battlefield as it creates debris tokens. But I believe they only take damage if they are actually attacked. Like shoving it into somebody else doesn't cause damage to the crate, you actually have to attack the crate. Then we have our statues, our special obstacles. They represent violative structures a player can build to gain advantage. Base, body, head, and flame. We'll show you where are the base segments. So using the build tactics, you can build these. So when you build the body, you gain an advantage card. When building the head, you gain an inspiration card. And when building the flame, you get an victory point. Now there will show each one what they are. So yeah, building these are kind of helpful. You gain extra little bonuses. But the other thing is the event access slot. The build part of the statue indicates which event slots the Destiny board the player has access to. Each statue, except for the flame, has a Roman numeral on one of its sides. Has access to all events placed to the left of the indicated slots. So what this is really important for is because in a 4-player game, you're getting way over here. This is showing that player A here has finished all of them. They have access to all of these oranges on the bottoms. So they're going to be able to get all the effects of all these stuff. Whereas player 1 here is way back here. They're only going to have access to these 2 there. So that's definitely crazy. Plus, it's also the farther and farther they go through, it's not just the missions, but it's also the other things. When the event triggers, they're not going to be able to get access to those bonuses either. So yeah, so it says a player has access to event slot takes advantage of any effect on the event card on a slot. Otherwise, they ignore them, including the mission effects at the end of the game. A player has access to the event slot also ignores the effects of a Doom card. So if a Doom card came in, they would get to ignore the effects. So yeah, collecting your shards is very important. But that's just kind of the end thing I want to end with this is building up this thing it doesn't gain you as many victory points as shards, but you're going to have more access to missions you can do. Someone else might gain 5 shards throughout the game, where you only gain 2, but if you have access to every single mission, you might complete 6 missions in the game instead and win the game that way. The same thing about dealing damage to opponents. If some guy is just running around trying to collect shards and you're destroying their other teammates, well, they have one guy running around, or you're continuing defeating them, they have less options and less actions, and you might gain points for missions at the end of the game, points for dealing damage to them. So it's like, it's not just collecting the shards, but that is a big part of it. End of the game, the first player, the aim ends the turn of the first player when all the event slots on the Destiny board are occupied. And you'll put enough event cards out for how many players. So if you're playing a 2-player game, you'll only have enough to fill up a 2-player board. You're not getting up with like 5 extra ones. When the game is over, each player does the following. Places their action cards they have in their hand on their action deck. Each player places the inflicted damage and the action cards they have on their player boards and their damage areas. During the leftmost player, they fulfill the requirements. Choosing mission event slots and see what they have indicated. So on the top one, each player checks whether they have met the requirements on the effect mission boards and retains any points there. And then the nemesis or the player, with the player or the nemesis of the most wins. Then the following, there's a tie. Players inflicting has their most of their cards in the inflicted damage deck wins. Otherwise, whoever has the most action cards in their deck wins. So that's again where damage makes a big difference, because if you get to the end, there's a tie for points. Then not necessarily a reason you should be focusing on, but it's always a thing to keep in mind. Is the person who inflicted the most damage is going to win. Also, whoever has the most cards. It's not just about doing the most damage, it's about also taking the least amount to break ties. Then there's stuff with campaign advancement. If you want to do that, you can do some stuff to gain some extra points, and at the end of the campaign, you can spend a bunch of stuff in here. After the end of the 4th game, for the 5th one, for the final, you can spend a bunch of your trophy points to do a bunch of stuff for kind of like the boss battle. Evolving your Warband, you can up your character to its legendary form if you want. Buy treasure cards, add them to your deck. Basically, whoever like one gets one artifact, and everyone else gets to kind of pick the rest of the cards. Then you mark all that stuff on the board. I don't want to get into too much. I'm not really a super huge campaign person myself. Nemesis board. A lot of it's going to look exactly like this. We have our 2 spots for cards that you take for damage. Then the damage inflicted deck. The character decks are going to show which one are up, like whichever card space up for you to fight against. Their spots. So pretty simple. Again, would have been kind of neat if they also showed just like filled out. Would have been kind of cool. And then the enemy rank boxes just might have to determine what ranked enemy you're fighting against. Your enemy cards, pretty simple. They have a power for use for assault for the reaction, how much health they they can take. Players gain one of their heroes. If they defeat the enemies, you have to deal that much damage in a single turn. And then they have a basic activation. Tokens are placed on a Destiny board during a setup. When a player has placed an event card, contains an enemy token must also place an enemy player on their board. Activation and movement. Kind of just basically just tells you what to do. I don't want to get into too much of this right now. When a player's turn must choose movement towards something, shard, danger token, specific node. You must try to reach the node if they can. Enemies moving to consider all nodes occupied by the models to be free. Nevertheless, they cannot stop on them. So you can walk through guys, they just can't stop in your area. The enemy rank represents the power level of the enemy ranks, minions, troopers, or leaders. It is best if the maximum rank of one enemy card is leader, with a maximum of 2 enemy cards with trooper rank are placed on the Nemesis board. Basically saying what you should try not to do is play with 3 leaders. You could play, if you want to, you could play with multiple leaders. Or you can play with all small guys, but the game is just going to be a little bit easier. So basically, the number of enemies you put out on the board and the level of them are just going to make the game easier or harder. One expansion, and in the Kickstarter stretch goals, there's a leader. There's only one of them, of each of these different guys. But if you bought multiple, you could put multiple of the guys out and make the game really hard. Actions and reactions. So enemies did do a couple of different things. So they can absorb damage. Damage gains 1 point for each shard. So if they so they can steal shards off the board as well. They reveal a card, trying to find the event. So they might actually reveal event cards as well. They can assault you by doing some damage to you. But yeah, you have to deal upgrading all your damage. So basically, smaller guys are easier to take out. They have like 1 or 2 health. Bosses are a little bit harder. They could have 3 health. Then there's solo play if you want to do that as well, which I'm not even going to go into. This just says if you want to do solo, just do some different stuff there. So very cool. Alright, so super long video. Hope you guys maybe follow long enough to enjoy this. Otherwise, come back in the next videos. We're going to go over the heroes in the first video. We'll probably go through their decks. The second video, we'll probably go through, like, the enemies and the equipment and some of the other stuff. It might be 3 extra videos. See you guys later. Bye.